Da 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 da. What's my good chair? Welcome, welcome, everybody. Let's give YouTube a couple of minutes, get those notifications out. In the meantime, if you've never met me before, hi, I'm Cindy. I explore the inside and the outside. And I would like to say that I explored both today in my experiences, but I think I explored a little bit more on the inside today than I did on the outside. I had an appointment this afternoon, and I decided because we had just one killer, nasty, lightning, thundering storm this morning. My alarm went off. I got up, I looked out at that window, and that storm just started right in that moment. And I thought, oh, what a serendipity that is. And I sat in my chair, turned everything off that was electrical. I have a big picture window, and the place was just pitch black outside, but not only pitch black, I could barely see across the street. And it was so enjoyable. It cooled the weather down quite a bit, but it was going to get to be 30 degrees today. And I had an appointment. I went to my appointment and I thought, it's so beautiful outside because of the way the weather system was. The wind was really, really strong. I had my granny wagon with me, and it was actually coming up off the sidewalk from the wind. I didn't have much in it, but it was very surprising just in that. But I thought I would walk home and get some fresh air. I guess I kind of had the idea that I wasn't going to be very physical today. It was a long walk. It really was a long walk. But in that long walk, there was some lessons in that. Uh, Being the season that it is, I've been on the hunt for rhubarb in the back alleys and apple trees that are hanging over fences that are dropping their apples on the ground. I don't pluck them off the trees, but I'll pick them up off the ground if they're in good shape. But it's the rhubarb really that I'm after in the back alleys, right? And I was walking down this back alley, and there was like a shopping plaza on one side. So there was no throughways through the back end of it because I was in the back lane. And on the other side, it was like big mansions with great big fences and stuff. So there was no getting by on that way. I was walking up the street or up the back alley, and I saw this big garbage bin, and I saw somebody sitting there, and I kind of had this idea that they were maybe doing drugs or something by this garbage bin. And these other, well, they were young men. They weren't teenagers or anything. They were young men in their early 20s or stuff. There were about five or six of them walked up to him, and they were all talking. And as I got closer, I could tell that they were talking about drugs, right? And it made me really nervous. They were indigenous, and they were guys, and there were no way for me to kind of scoot away from the situation, that I had to walk by them, and there were no other people in the back alley. So I was kind of in that moment. And as I'm walking forward, trying to stay calm through the situation. And it wasn't because they were indigenous, it was because of the I'm hearing the words drugs and stuff. When we know people, when they take drugs, that they're not themselves. They actually become more of themselves, and very brave in what they do. And not only brave in what they do, they're not really thinking straight, right? They're not really thinking straight. So I had a really nervous moment as I was approaching these gentlemen. Hello, Eugene. Hello, Hanner. So, on the norm, these kind of things don't bother me. But this was a pretty unfamiliar neighborhood that I was in. I don't normally walk down in that neighborhood or anything. And it was right behind one of those really bad bars, unfortunately. Sometimes I don't think that way, but I've never in my entire life had a nervousness about walking down back alleys. I used to do it like at 3, 4 o'clock in the morning as a young adult. I would go down the back alleys and I would never have any issues. I wouldn't even be giving it any thought. But again, in the season that we're in and, the conversations going on and the emotions going on, oh my goodness, we're talking crazy town. I'm just picking up absolutely everything. So I'm also going to attribute that little bit of nervousness that I had today walking down that back alley uh, with the tension of the neighborhood that I was in the emotions and the understandings of the lessons that I am taking in, and we'll go into that in a minute, right? But I'm approaching them. I have no choice, so I'm just trying to be calm, la di da di da, right? Not to like I can't be invisible, right? Because we're the only ones in the back alley. And I didn't want to draw a lot of attention to myself. My only hope was that they would think, oh my goodness, little old lady. But right, I was all in the bright colors and stuff. I wasn't too sure how the situation was going to play out. And I walked by them, and I tried to stay on the furthest part of the back lane as I could away from them. I couldn't see who was sitting there beside the bin where all these guys were talking to this person because they were kind of surrounding him and stuff. And as I walked by, one of these men looked at me and said, "Hello, how are you?" And every single bit of stress just fell off of me in that moment. And I had a moment of brightness, like, all that stress came out of me. It just came right out of my body, hit the concrete, and then in place of it, it rushed into my body this sense of absolute joy and wonder and pleasure. And I couldn't help it. My whole face, I could feel it just lit up. And I smiled at him and I said, "Hello. Thank you." I actually stopped. I said, "Thank you so much. Is that ever kind of you?" Right? And I was so amazed. And then I just carried on. I carried on walking, and he was saying, "Oh, I just like saying hello to people when I come across them." And I went, "Oh my goodness, I like to do the same thing. Why didn't I do that first thing? Why was he the one that had to step forward in that interaction that he had with me?" And it was a beautiful interaction. And as I'm walking away, I'm about 10 feet away from him. And then I felt it all fall away from me again. And in that place, what comes into me is that recognition of the shame I was feeling, that I automatically assumed that these were bad guys, that I automatically assumed that they were up to no good. And yes, maybe they were up to something. Who am I to say whether it's good or bad? right? We know lots of times we delve into these coping mechanisms as a way to get close to God or to escape our issues, right? Which is basically the same thing, right? It's just to take us somewhere else. So who am I to say in that? And I felt shame. I felt a sense of shame in making an assumption even before I had that interaction. And then again, as I'm walking along, it just slowly just kind of dissipate, and I'm going back into the beautiful wind blowing in my face and the sun, and going back looking for the rhubarb. But then I had the idea, well, probably a good idea just to kind of move out of this neighborhood as fast as I could, right? Because it could have been a different experience. It very easily could have had, even by my reaction, if I had jumped or if I'd gotten defensive in any way, it could have been a different experience that I had and they had. Um, but I moved out of that neighborhood. I really enjoyed my walk. I stopped off at the grocery store to get some drink crystals and some sour cream because I was making lazy halakchi for dinner today. And then I came in and I sat down and I was bagged. Like I felt like a train had run over me. And, I was already going into the lessons. I was already relaxed and done with the official stuff for the day and got my walk in. And I thought, well, Cindy, go lay down for a few minutes. And if you fall asleep, you're going to fall asleep. Right? If you need to take a nap, you need to take a nap. Because I felt so done. I was so exhausted. And again, it was the heat. There was a lot of humidity in the air because of the storm. And, that moment of up and down, that roller coaster of emotions and feelings and understandings and stuff, and that experiences with those guys, that maybe it drained me in the moment. But I didn't bother turning off my computer or anything. I'm not somebody who takes in lessons from thought leaders or sits in university lectures or another content creator who's got something to share. I'm not usually that person that will piddle around my house and listen to this stuff in the background because I want to be in it. I want to be able to take in the lessons, resonate and contemplate and mull it over and feel it out for myself. But I didn't even think of it. I just left everything on and I went and laid down. I didn't fall asleep, but I found that I was really listening to the conversations going on the computer, right? And again, YouTube kind of knows the content that I love, and for the most part, I let them suggest the content for me. And so just one video after another was coming into my mind, and I really did enjoy just laying there and listening to it and absorbing it and thinking about it. And I guess maybe I might have even dozed off for a little bit in that process. But when I woke up, I made myself, oh no, I didn't make myself a cup of coffee. I actually just grabbed myself a drink and I sat down and I was just spaced because I'm not somebody who lays down in the middle of the day. But again, like I said, the heat, the humidity, and the experiences that I was having on my walk home, it might have been much. right? And so I was sitting here and right again I'm just sitting here and I'm just enjoying my juice and just rehydrating because that's what I thought I needed was to really hydrate and I was taking the lessons, but I wasn't taking the lessons. I was just taking information in. And that's not the way I like to go about um, making some movement for myself. It's just not a good way for me to build on understandings because they're not my understandings, they're just information. And I need to rifle through stuff. I need to store stuff away that isn't useful to me but might be useful for somebody else down the road. I need to be able to feel out the creator to see if it's somebody who's trustworthy that I'm able to right taking the lesson and trust that it's some good wise information that's pertinent to me. And I wasn't doing that. I was just like a vacuum cleaner, just taking it in. Got up and says, I can't do this, right? And I got up and I made my lazy cabbage rolls for dinner and I was eating my dinner and I went back into that experience with these gentlemen that I had misjudged, that I had anticipated in having a negative interaction with. Like I really, right? And again, it is the season. You don't know what's going on. I'm feeling absolutely everything. If you're highly sensitive and empathic, you're probably feeling everything in your neighborhood with your family. My sister's going in for her operation on Monday. They're not canceling it this time. And she's absolutely terrified. And I know I'm picking up that, but there's nothing that I can do in there except maybe be that motivator and that little bit of inspiration that everything is going to be okay. And then she just comes at me and she goes, well, it's easy for you to say you're not having the operation. And I'm just like, okay, I get that, right? I get that. And I'm going to be there for you. And I'm going to be there right until you're right back in the recovery. And I'm going to be sending all kinds of great mojo. This, right? And I'm telling her, I'm giving her statistics because I've done some research on the operation. I'm just trying to be a little bit of company for her in what she's going with, understanding that she suffers anxiety just terribly, and this was just beating her up. And again, being highly sensitive and empathic, I guess I took some of that on too, right? But for me, it was a little bit different with my sister because there's that acceptance. And I would talk to her a little bit, about acceptance because she's saying I was trying to search out absolutely everything I could think of to get myself out of this operation, this life saving operation that she so desperately needs. And she's looking for outs in that. And I find it a little bit frustrating because, she's not caring for herself truly that way. And so, in kindness, I'm saying, it's in acceptance in what you don't have any control for, right? She says, well, yeah, I understand because I was looking for the outs and I couldn't find any outs. Like, I know I have to have this operation. I says, well, okay. So can you put that in something else or someone else's hands and just trust that you have to accept it? That no matter what, now you're just going to ride those waves, right? That you don't have a say now. And that's a something, right? Like, because we have to understand that we don't always get a say, right? She can't cancel that operation. I don't think she would. if she could, because that roller coaster of emotions is just too much for her. But when she is said and done, when she is out of that, right? It has been, as long as I've been in the hairy, scary in the past half a dozen years, in that roller coaster of emotions and lessons and understandings and trust issues and betrayal and right, even in the livelihood, in the roof that's put over my head, and also in the repetitiveness of finding myself in the same situation that I was in when I first woke up to some of these ideas. And I'm not wanting, and I have no intention of doing that in repeat. And it was probably why I was just like a vacuum cleaner, just taking stuff in, because it's just, okay, I got to do this, right? And not because I want to. When I want to, oh my goodness, I love being involved in the world and in my life and in my movement forward, and coming in here and sharing it and being the evidence and the inspiration for somebody else so they know that they can do it too, right? But that wasn't what was going on with me today. I was just holding on to absolutely everything. And so the lesson for me was also, right, to understand that I don't have all the answers, that sometimes I've got to ride those waves. Sometimes I just have to accept the situation that I'm in and take the goodness of what is coming into my life in the moment, like the beautiful windy day, right? The sun, that joy, absolute joy I had when that young man said, "Hello, how's your day going?" And I was just shocked. It just shocked my system, but it shocked my system in such a pleasurable, surprising, joyful way. And so these are the moments I'm supposed to be remembering that beautiful meal I made for myself, the lazy cat. It's called halapji, lazy halapji. It's cabbage rolls without the work of stuffing them and rolling them and stuff. You just chop everything up, put it in a pot, and it's the exact same stuff. It's going in the same place. It tastes the same way and takes 1/4 of the time, right? So it was a beautiful meal too, and that little bit of a experience that I had in laying down in bed and actually being able to take in some conversations and some pertinent information, that I was able to actually do what I love to do in tearing it apart, separating it, decide what categories things are going in my right, and just recognizing that I was truly doing for myself, like I was taking care of myself, right? I'm not a napper, but I felt that, I needed to lay down, that maybe the sun got to me, or the humidity got to me. And, I let myself lay down, but doing something that I normally don't do, in taking lessons in outside of sitting here at my desk and paying attention and having my notepad and my pen ready to go, oh really, oh my goodness, I never thought of it that way. And I'm in it, right? And I was able to do that from just laying down. I'm not going to say that this is going to be a regular routine for me, but it was something for me to take note of, and it was super enjoyable because it also made me realize that I wasn't missing out on anything in laying down for a little while. If anything, I was replenishing myself. I was making myself also emotionally, because physically I'm taking care of myself, but emotionally, right, I was making myself feel like I really did matter, that I was actually, right, taking care of my emotional and physical well-being, which made me feel really good in that. Let me just take out this notification. And so it was a lesson for me in reflection that, you know, when we get into these states, when we are stressed, when we feel like we have no control, that we just have to ride the waves, that we just have to accept how things are, that we find ourselves falling backwards in the lessons of trust and appreciation for another human being, that we can take a look at other aspects of our lives that do make us smile, do make us feel good, do make us feel like we matter, and more importantly, have those same feelings for possibly a total stranger. And I did. But I didn't take into consideration all the good I did for myself and for the others, because I'm sure that young gentleman, right, that I misjudged, um, he saw the joy on my face. He saw that I stopped and looked at him and gave him the respect that he was giving me, and he saw the true joy on my face, and I could imagine what that did for him too. Not only what it did for him, okay, because lots of times, because that was a kindness that he gave me, and in giving me that kindness, I returned it tenfold. I mean, if emotions could give a good push, that gave a good push, but it was a kindness that he initiated. Sometimes in those kindnesses that we give to others, it's not the kindness that we give to that person, it's the experience that the people who are in the surroundings to witness that kindness get to appreciate. So I didn't even take into consideration the impact of that small interaction, because, right, they didn't all say hello to me, just the one guy said hello to me. And in that experience and interaction, that we had together, like, it was amazing. It was so amazing, right? um, that it was the evidence for his friends, right? It was the evidence, and there were, I would say, including the guys sitting there behind the dump, there were at least six of them, and some of them were big guys. They were scary looking. I wasn't in a familiar neighborhood, and I wasn't in a good neighborhood. In all honesty, it was probably, right, a back alley that I should not have walked down. In all honesty, but in that interaction, that very kind, reciprocal interaction that I had, that his friends got to witness that. That's evidence. And that's not just movement in the kindness interchange that me and him had. That is an experience. And that was experience for all of us. I didn't stick around to see their faces or have conversations with them or anything, right? But I could imagine, because of the way I felt and the way I reciprocated, um, with this gentleman, there's not a chance that it didn't impact them too. And we have to appreciate that, because, I came home and for hours I was just kind of like blah, blah. Right? And I didn't even take a moment to think of all the good that came out of my day, right? All I was doing was holding on to emotions of others and letting it dictate how I was thinking and how I was feeling, not even taking into consideration all that little bit of sprinkles, right? Cotton candy, popcorn that was going on, not just in my life, but right? A few people's lives today. Kindness does matter, and we don't always recognize it. Like, even if we're just holding the door for somebody, as soon as you hold the door out for somebody, right? Usually that's just out of our minds, out of our life already. We're not looking at the past like that. But what if that person didn't have any strength in their arms to do that? That possibly they were having a bad day, that they were struggling in the moment, and somebody held the door open for them, that big, heavy door. And that is something that should be witnessed, and it should be absorbed and taken in and appreciated for what it is, right? But we don't. We just kind of put it off to the wayside and we forget about it like 5 seconds after it happened. I didn't forget about, right, that interaction because it impacted me lots, like I said, right? All those stressed up emotions and looking for an escape route on both sides of me, which there wasn't any. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, I've got to walk by this situation. This is not going to be good. And then have that situation turn out to be absolutely something different and something beautiful, right? And when I got home, I never gave it another thought, right? I never, I did think of my sister, but I didn't think about that little bit of inspiration and motivation and in that little bit of give back to help calm her system down a little bit. I didn't think I was holding all of that, but I wasn't giving it any thought. So when I was feeling kind of, right, all I had to do was think of a few nice things. Think about my lazy halakji. Think about this interaction with the gentleman. Think about the walk home that I gave myself, and I was able to put foot inserts in my sandals. I didn't think it would work, and it worked out perfectly fine. My feet, they were better. They weren't as rough as they were yesterday, but I did a lot of walking yesterday. So in today, right, it was just a little bit of soreness that just hadn't dissipated from yesterday. And it was a beautiful walk. And I got my walk in, so it made it so I didn't have to go outside today after I got home and after I felt so ho hum. That's kind of the way I felt, a little bit of ho hum. I feel so much better now. And I have to remind myself because, again, I do those small kindnesses whenever. Oh, I just thought of another one, right? I went to I went to the Salvation Army on the way home. It's a little thrift store just to see if I can find a score. Found a little dragon, so I bought a little dragon. and when I paid for the dragon, she says, "Oh, would you like to add a donation?" I says, "Oh yeah, you can tag an extra $2 onto my bill." So that was another one, and right, you do these things and you don't even think of them, like even 5 minutes after these things happen. And I could probably sit here right now and think of a few more. And this is what we should do more often because, I'm not the only one, right? Like he did a kindness for me. These things happen all the time. And if you hang out with me, you probably do it quite a bit too, right? You get what you give in this world, but we shouldn't forget when we're giving because when we're giving, that's the evidence, right? For others. That's the opportunity for somebody to follow suit, possibly, and make themselves feel a little bit better about their life. Okay, you guys, we're just going to pull a card a couple of minutes. I hope you guys are having a great night. Um, and for those of you who are up, getting the kids ready for their day, or you're on your way to work and you're listening to me yibber yabbering a day, kind of make note at the end of the day, when you come home and you're all tired and the kids are screaming at you and the house is filthy and your husband's looking for dinner and you're just wanting to flake right out, right? And have a bath, but you look at the ring around the bathtub with all the kids having their baths and they're just, I just don't have the energy to scrub the tub, right? Think back and take note of those little kindnesses that you did for yourself and for others, right? And I bet you'll feel a whole lot better. You'll find that 2 minutes to scrub the tub and then be able to lay on the tub, possibly just soak there, soak the day away and get out of the tub. You feel so much better. You feel like making dinner, right? You're able to pick up a few things off the living room floor and right. And you can end your day on a good note, knowing that you accomplished and you were the evidence in your day, right? And yeah, we've got to pay a little bit more attention to the good. We're always so eager to pounce on what feels uncomfortable, right? And yeah, we need to pay a little bit attention to the little kindnesses that we give ourselves and we give others and others give to us. Okay, you guys, we're just going to pick a card. If you've never hung out with me when we've done these cards, these are just 54 powerful words. There's 56 cards. Two of the words are in there twice. Um, I'll tell that story at some other point. But yeah, we're just going to pull up the card. First perspective, first thought that comes to my mind. We're just going to give it a couple of minutes and we'll see what comes of it, okay? Oh, and this one's kind of sticking out, so let's take this one. Oh my goodness. Kind of goes with what I was just talking about, you guys, right? I got the word experience, and it says here experience paired with attention offers up gifts, right? We have to pay attention in the experiences that we're having because those are the gifts, right? That's the popcorn and the sprinkles and the cotton candies and those memories that make us smile and that inspiration and motivation and evidence, right? That we matter, right? And that everything is going to be okay. And no matter what the day we're having, no matter what the experience that we're having, because even in a bad experience, there are lessons in that. What did I write here? Paired with attention offers up gifts, right? Those gifts in the experience, those gifts of understanding in not jumping to conclusions, right? It's it seems reasonable to me that we should be cautious in our experiences, of course, right? But if we failed in that, right, and we did get ourselves in a situation, there would most definitely be gifts in that. And the gifts are the lessons, and whether it is to do it again, not to jump to conclusions, to be a little bit more trusting, not so judgmental to ourselves or to others, right? And to be able, maybe in that gift, to recognize that, our days aren't always crappy, right? It can be and often is the best of times and the worst of times. Okay, you guys, that's my good cheer for tonight. Um, yeah, I'll be back tomorrow. Have a great night. Thank you guys for showing up.